Welcome to the Joint Base Podcast, where we react to everything military. Today is no different. I use my experience with over a decade spent in the United States military, from everything from a combat paratrooper to military intelligence. We're going to continue the Ottobulletproof series into the KSK, so let's get it.
I always show that by simply removing the sights.
Someone shoots at this, one passes under me. Yes, everything is bigger.
You're completely competitive, so we don't need to worry about that.
Incredible. Something you really have to see with your own eyes. I was allowed to accompany commando soldiers during their training. Why do I do this again and again? Out. Shooting courses right in the middle of urban combat. Survival training in the Arctic and on the high seas. All in different climate zones. Attention, fog. In doing so, I gained such deep and intimate insights as no one before me.
Cheers, boys.
A very good morning. Hey there. Nice to see you. Welcome. What are we doing here with you today? The commando candidates have already established their fundamentals regarding shooting training. And here in the background, you see the KSK's Shooting Training Center. That means it's one of the most modern shooting facilities in Germany. And with you, we have exactly the same plan. So you'll be prepared for your trip to the USA and the Urban Combat course. You'll get a tour and exclusive insights into our facility.
Nice.
I'm very excited because I've naturally heard a lot about it, even as an active soldier, of course. Many myths surround it. I'm very excited to see what we'll witness.
Let yourself be surprised. I'm ready. Let's go in. I'm handing you over to my best instructor.
Nothing can go wrong, right?
So just so you know, I'm skipping
Otto, this is
3
Heiko,
to
my
go to
best
4.
shooting instructor.
I couldn't wait.
I'm putting you in his trustworthy hands and wish you both a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay, Otto, we're here today at the SRZ, our dedicated shooting training center, because for the commando candidates, the primary and most important topic here is indeed shooting training. Let's just delve into the shooting training, exploring what the main focuses are and the significant differences to regular troops.
I'm very excited about that. I've only heard a lot about it. I've never been in here before. And in a regular troop, it's like a big mystery. What actually happens here and what is being trained?
You can tell he's super excited. Probably not as excited as I am, but he's excited.
So
Now it's time to
visit the SRZ.
The SRZ.
Okay, Otto, let's go through the SRZ now. I'll show you around.
I can already see on the wall the progression, how it looked in the very beginning, all black, and how it has evolved.
So, as I said, this is a picture from 96, 97, where we still did everything in black. And then here's the development. A few years are missing in between, but in the end, everything is here again. And on the far right, you can see it with the G95, with the Quote on top, and with the multi-tarn.
That's right, camouflage development. First black, then fleck-tarn, then multicam, and then multi-tarn.
I've been there from the very beginning. And as I said, I also experienced the times in black.
Nice.
And when I think about it now, not only how the equipment has developed, but also how we have developed, that's already enormous, because when you go on missions, you also realize where you still need to improve. And then it's a continuous development, because the opponent, I would say, also grows in terms of experience. And if you stand still there, you'll eventually fall behind.
You know, this is something that soldiers do a lot. You know, he's talking about from the times he used to wear all black back in the 90s, you know, and how much we evolved over time. And he's using an example of the different camo that we've had. You know, I even look back at the Vietnam generation to think those guys are fighting in a jungle against enemies that they cannot even see. And, you know, today's generation, they're looking back at my generation from Iraq and Afghan campaign. We're fighting an enemy that sometimes blends in with the civilian population. You know, in that generation, the next generation after me, you know, who are they going to be fighting and what kind of challenges are they going to have to overcome? But I think for the most part, soldiers, we look back at the generation previous and think, you know, like, man, I can't believe they used to do it this way.
When they're done with their training here and they go on an exchange, so as far as shooting training is concerned, we are completely competitive. We don't have to hide from anyone anymore. We'll start now, we'll go back there to our interactive shooting cinema. I'll show you what possibilities we have there, all from the perspective of basic training. Then we go through the studio area, and at the end I'll show you the 25-meter wall attachments. Okay, then I'll show you the shooting cinema here. We have 2 shooting cinemas. They are identical in construction. The significant advantage we have here now, many civilian shooting ranges also possess this with the cinema. We truly don't need to manually record hits. It's clearly displayed on the large screen at the front using advanced thermal imaging technology. Right, so we can put various scenarios in here. Here we can effectively simulate target identification by simply running photorealistic targets or engaging with films, where individuals have to precisely decide if it's a shootable target or not. They have to process it very precisely, and the targets themselves are constantly moving. We can do that.
This is something that law enforcement in the United States has started going to, not large scale, but like big agencies, the capability of shooting at electronic range. Even now, I've noticed that they're going to like virtual training, which is awesome. And as he's mentioning, it allows you to see exactly where you're hitting in these scenarios. So like shoot or no shoot, who did you actually shoot? And it's all essentially at the cost of electricity. You cannot beat the cost of it.
For you up front, if we say we want to train for basic training, that's about handling. They have to perform certain handling quickly. Then we have this timer wall here. You can see the different target sizes below. On the left is for rifles, and on the right are those for pistols. And there you can do various exercises where the times run out. Then we'll go through the studio area here right now. This is the area where the guys train once they've completed basic training and passed tactical shooting training. Then we start with basic close quarters combat. For that, we also have the control room here. And as you can see now, we have every area that is under camera surveillance. Basically,
That's
it's
sweet.
simply about security reasons. Camera surveillance is the positive side effect, logically. We can also use this for evaluation.
That's probably due to the learning effect, because often it's like you call it standard training. Yes, that's still wrong. It's different from just being shown the picture again. Look, that's how you behave there. That's how it works correctly, like with the other one. Simply a different learning
100%.
effect that you achieve through visual representation of what went well and what went badly.
What we always do in the evaluation process at the very end of the day is there's the absolute best video of the entire day, and then there's, let's say, the very worst video of the day. Because it's also like this. Here you can really clearly see when significant mistakes are made. And that's how it is. We want everyone to learn from them.
This is no different than what a basketball team, a football team, or any professional sports team does after a game. They're going to go watch film to try to find out what they did really well, to try to find out what they could improve on. And that's just shows the professionalism of the KSK and how serious they're taking this.
And that's why it's also like this at the beginning, that if we have 4 people in the room, there are also 4 instructors. That means it's a one-on-one supervision. What we can do here in the studio area is we can shoot almost 360 degrees. I'll just show you that on the walls here in just a moment. It's also very recognizable by its color. Everywhere right where this foil is, we can then indeed shoot at it. The green parts are the stanchions. That's where the bullet trap is attached. You can shoot at it too, but we don't want constant stress there.
To come from. Most of the damage, I ask, how can you shoot here? Because of the camera surveillance, there are lamps, some extraction systems, and then you just see what's happening at this level, where you say, yeah, nobody goes in there.
Mistakes always happen, especially during training. No one here is truly immune to accidentally hitting the floor. That will then, of course, be sanctioned with a red card. Then that means the training is then practically over. So if a shot is fired into an area that is not intended for it, however, in the last 12 years, it has been an exceptionally and vanishingly rare occurrence for shots to be intentionally fired into specific areas not explicitly designated or intended for such activities. That means, I believe, in the last 12 years, we have, 4 times that it was shot into the ground. And if I look at civilian shooting ranges,
that looks completely different, especially with the bullet impact. So if you extrapolate, we're talking about several million shots and then 34. So that's really, that shouldn't happen either. I can understand that for you, but you can also see the level of work being done. We want to shoot accurately.
And you can see here the areas that are marked. These are the areas where you should shoot. And it's also the case that everything is documented. So any shot that isn't on the finger
jacket on
also
that guy.
results in a warning. So when we're in a tactical scenario, from a certain point where we say, you're so well trained now, it also means in close quarters combat, shooting next to it. Anywhere on the person is not an option. And then we have
this is going to be a great video. I mean,
even if
I
a
can't
shot
even,
is fired
I
outside
can't
here,
wait for
that is
it.
also documented. That means people have to be so controlled that they know exactly who they're shooting at, where they're shooting, so that there's no background.
And these would actually be the perfect furniture for a workshop and so on. It doesn't break.
The advantage is that everything has to be designed so that we don't produce any ricochets in case a mistake happens.
Yes, I understand.
And this is very bulletproof indeed here. Right, okay. If we look at the target display here, because it's also being filmed here, it's still definitely quite, I'd say, very 80s, 90s style. That's why we're also going for photorealistic targets here. Because the paper targets, these so-called Belgian targets, are very limited in terms of their representation. And actually, we want to move away from these drawn targets because it's just a bit unrealistic.
They are really very widespread. I mean, no matter where you are in the world or where you're traveling in the Western Hemisphere, you always have these, or very often still, these drawn targets that just look a bit old.
Shall we go in there now, perhaps?
Yep.
We have 2 readily available stairwells, you know.
It's actually very smart that they made them like more realistic, because if you look at the bottom left here, you can see it looks like very cartoonish, you know. And even now in some military and some law enforcement still have like that 300-pound silhouette where the guy, you know, it's basically his arms at his side, and it factors in all that. It looks like what the KSK is doing, which is a tier 1 unit, are using more realistic targets, so it looks like a person, and you can actually see the target is smaller. Like he's a normal sized human being. You're not fighting a 350-pound gorilla.
We now have each round stairwell. It's more like a luxury hotel, I'd say.
Yes, that's already official, let's put it that way.
And also, as you can see here, I said basically everything here is capable of absorbing projectiles safely. Especially when you consider that you're training in the stairwell here, that's already a challenge without equipment.
That's amazing. Look at that.
If it's the day when a stairwell is out of order, the guys are pretty exhausted in the evening. Up the stairs, down the stairs, up the stairs.
I don't think you can see any more stairs in the evening.
Here's the roof of the SAZ. And if you look here, this is the so-called atrium.
Okay, so I can also practice balconies and a few other things here as well.
So you can either come in here with a ladder, or you can rappel down from above.
This is all
That's
material
awesome.
that actually indeed quite theoretically absorbs projectiles.
Yes, but it's not for that.
Intended.
It's all made of rigopole, so nothing happens, but no shooting takes place out here.
I wonder what their budget was on that
what
building.
we just said, rappel down from above and come in here.
An instructor stands here, and as soon as everyone enters through this entry point, this will be closed. The area is safe.
How many people can be simultaneously, or teams? So probably per floor, only one squad or one man or whatever.
Later, the whole company goes through there. So there are no limits. Okay, we're done with the cinema, with the studio now. The next thing we would have now is the 25-meter range. It's really just about the basics, body position. I'm doing a bit with trigger control. Those are really the basics. The advanced stuff, that comes later in the USA. And then you'll see the guys have already completed the basic shooting course. They have tactical shooting training. And they should also master the basic fundamentals of close quarters combat by then. And then
Nice.
you'll realize shooting is basically just a means to an end. Yes, because they are busy with so many other influences. Which direction do I have to go? Which is the next door? So that will be much more complex. Okay, Otto, let's go to the 25-meter range now. Then we'll just shoot a few basics here, just like we do with the people.
Dear people, I would love to shoot myself at this point, but unfortunately that's not possible. Accompanying prospective commando soldiers is a highly sensitive area, and there are strict rules and laws that also apply to me. It is legally stipulated that civilians are not allowed to receive tactical training. And even if I was a soldier for a long time and attended many shooting
is
courses,
that like a
I am
German
currently
thing?
a civilian and am therefore not allowed to participate in such shooting exercises. Nevertheless,
come on.
am I allowed to look over the instructor's shoulder? After that, I'll also take you into the KSK's Armory.
What I will
Come
do
on,
with
you
you now
know
is nothing special.
You know he shot. Come
We'll
on.
just start. We're shooting. I'm shooting at the multi-target discs here. And what is the biggest source of error when shooting?
Standing incorrectly?
Yes, please do go on. I am listening intently, so please continue. I am very eager to hear more.
Good. Pulling the trigger is exactly the same, can also be a huge source of error.
You've actually already said 100%. So I need a sharp sight picture, and I have to pull the trigger in such a way that I don't introduce any movement into the weapon. Because what happens if I pull the trigger too hard? I pull it off target. I pull it off target, so I introduce movement into the weapon. The sight points exactly at the target I want to hit. And by pulling the trigger, I essentially pull the weapon off target. And that's shooting training, and that's where we start. I'll show you something now, and it's really just about my body position.
Here we go.
I'm going to lane 5. So what would it be now? I stand upright. Is that appropriate?
No, because the center of gravity is probably quite high up.
So they're
I'm
starting
standing
at like
straight
the
now. Actually, they
basics.
say that's wrong, right?
I like it.
Now I'm just resting the weapon on my finger here at the front. And here at the back, I'm just using my index finger so that I can say, okay, I have it under control here. And now just pay attention to the weapon, what it does here. The last one went a bit high, but overall, don't move.
It was truly very horizontal, quite so.
Okay, so what am I trying to say? Many people train, or it's just taught, that you have to firmly brace the weapon. It has to sit controlled in the shoulder, which I'm doing now.
Not true. Yep, 100%.
Yeah. It's actually, and I said this earlier, I stand as if I were at a cocktail table, completely relaxed.
Actually love what he said there. So let me go a little bit backwards. When I was in Afghanistan 2009, 2010, I was the SDM, Squad Designated Marksman. So I wasn't a trained sniper, but I was trained by a sniper, if that makes sense. My squad leader that trained us has been through sniper school. And the very first correction that he made to us, because a lot of us were already pretty decent shots, that's why we were able to be in that position, but was our grip. And what I would do is I would always squeeze the grip, like it owed me money. And what he's saying, and what my squad leader at that time was telling me, was that you don't even really need your thumb on the grip on an M14 at all. It really just comes down to pulling the trigger. That's all you need. It's just one finger, realistically. Granted, the M14 has bipods. It's a little bit more difficult with an M4, even though he did just show you that you really don't even have to grip on to the rifle to get accurate shots down range.
And what do I have to do?
Actually, it's just this finger. That's the only movement I have to make.
The sight is on the target and I pull the trigger so that I hit. I just shot at lane 5 and they are all in the so-called lethal zone.
Yes.
Although the body position was actually impractical.
Yes.
So that means basically I stood upright and still didn't fall backward. Because what you didn't see, I was still standing on the balls of my feet.
Yeah, okay.
My weight was distributed in such a way that I could have taken a step forward without shifting my weight. What is for you? The appeal that you can shoot? Or when do you say I can shoot? When the sight picture is where it needs to be. So we're now working at some point with specific index points. That truly means, because I always bring the weapon to precisely the same firing position, completely regardless of the actual position, my sighting device is actually only there for me in the very end, so that I can confidently say, yes, the weapon is really in the exact area where I truly want it to be. I always demonstrate that by simply removing the sights here, just like this. So now I don't have a sight on the weapon, and in the end, because I always make the same movement and always go into the same firing position and use my index points, I am actually able to hit the target. Someone can easily go left or right. That also works with target changes. I'm going to lane 6 first, to the center of the target. That means I go up here, I don't have a sighting device on it, I go for it, and you see, where are the hits? In the target area, yes. So lethal without a sighting device. Because simply through...
I love that he actually took a sight off his rifle, because that really sent it home right there. I've never seen anyone physically take a sight off a rifle and demonstrate, especially on video in front of, 1 million people that are watching Otto's video. It's the same thing as like a recurve bow, or like, how like an archer has an arrow. Like a compound bow has a sight, sure, but think about old school, like the recurve bows. They have no sights on them. It's all intuition and muscle memory. Same thing as like a baseball player. You know, some guy's got a glove out there. He can throw it, you know, within inches or even closer every single time. And he's just doing it off muscle memory and intuition. It's the same thing. And I think he just demonstrated that perfectly. You could tell this guy's been teaching, you know, for decades.
Through the automated movement sequence, I raise the weapon. I know that when the cheek rest touches my cheek or the shoulder stock, then I'm actually in. That's an automatic process. That usually works with target changes too. So I go to lane 4, then to 5 by simply letting my eyes lead. And you see, even with target changes without a sighting device, lethal, all hits are on target. Absolutely
that's
amazing.
That's impressive,
truly.
though. Come on, that's impressive.
Okay, that was really, really mega basic indeed. And you see, that's the topic we actually cover on the first day. We first look at where people's pickup point is. And then no matter how good they are, everyone has to go through the introduction. We do all activities by me demonstrating it or one of the instructors until it's solid. And then at some point, we start letting them do it independently. The next thing we're doing now, we'll see you again in the USA. You see the guys have then completed their tactical shooting training and also taken the first steps in CQB. And then you might be able to evaluate that differently now.
He goes to the USA
Before
quite
I
a
finally
bit.
get to see the commando candidates in action at the truly big highlight of their intensive shooting training in the USA, I get a small exclusive glimpse into the KSK's impressive armory in Kalwan, Ninitol.
And we are here in the armory of the training base, and what I want to show you today is the basic equipment of the commando soldier. Here, the commando soldier first learns about his equipment, which he then also has to master.
So we've already done a little tour here. I've already seen that some people truly personalize it a bit, observing precisely how they do it with chalk paint and exploring various creative ways to modify it. I'm curious to hear what else you have to report, because I can definitely say it's a highlight to come in here.
Exactly, in training, we set certain parameters. Later in the commando company, the operators can ultimately and effectively adapt their equipment to their specific mission, their individual specialization, their particular use, so that it works ideally and perfectly for them. In the beginning, it's always the same everywhere. When you learn the basics, you have to adhere to certain parameters. But that too is ultimately very interesting, and we want to go into the details now. So this is the basic kit here, meaning we have a Heckler & Koch P30 pistol. We have our G95 assault rifle, also from Heckler & Koch. And we have our night vision device, which is already adapted to a ballistic protective helmet as it is usually used. And ultimately, we want to go from small to large there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them anytime.
Yes, the first thing would naturally be the difference between the P8 as I know it and the P30.
That's right, yes. So
Pistol that the regular Bundeswehr units normally receive, and the P30 for you.
the P30 is a successor iteration, meaning a further and more advanced development step of the USP, as it's commonly called in civilian use, a universal self-loading pistol, P8 in the Bundeswehr, but also chambered in caliber 9x19, a classic and widely used pistol caliber, a standard service cartridge, as it is typically and reliably used in the Bundeswehr. Our weapons must also be compatible with this, as there are certain NATO standardizations that must be adhered to.
Yeah.
Classic double
That's what I
stack
was gonna
magazine,
say.
15 rounds. What can be loaded here, quite remarkably, is a steel polymer weapon, and you can already clearly perceive a very significant difference when compared to the P8. Firstly, it is completely ambidextrous, offering great versatility. This means that both right-handed and left-handed shooters can operate the weapon equally well. The backstrap here, you see this line here? There's a pin here that I can punch out, and then I can adjust my grip piece, my grip width here, which hands I press there. I guess you always had problems. The grip
That's
on the P8
important.
was probably always too small here. For others, it was always too big, especially women who can't properly reach the trigger or can't pull it in the right area because their finger is simply too short or too long. And that then leads to shooting errors or to training oneself in shooting errors because the weapon simply cannot be personalized. And that is given here. And the night combat capability, or rather, combat in restricted visibility, is possible here via this laser light module. This is adapted here. It's not normally on the weapon. With this laser light module, in conjunction with my night vision device, I can then detect targets and engage them in restricted visibility in darkness.
Yep.
This is a
Right. So I was told that I was not telling enough stories. I have lots of stories to tell. Why not tell it when they're relevant like this? So he's mentioning that the laser on his pistol works in conjunction with his nods. They 100% do. And let me give you a good story for that. So in 2010, I think it was June 2010, we get into this crazy near ambush. I'm talking like within, 5-10 feet of the enemy. And that's just the beginning of it. It goes into this crazy firefight, which I'll explain into another story. But we find ourselves on top of this roof. There's like a lull in the action. So the enemy's not shooting at us. We're not shooting at them. We can't even see them anymore. Like, where did they go, right? So we're all on high alert. We get told anything that moves, kill it, right? So we have our nods down. We can see everything. It's like daylight out there, right? And so I'm looking off in the distance, more than 50 meters, less than 100 meters around that area, right? And I'm looking and I see something moving around on top of this roof. And I'm like, here we go, dude. This is going to be it right here. So, I mentioned I was at SDM, so I'm ready for it, right? So I'm tucking in, I'm bringing up the sight, I'm hitting the laser. So you have a laser on that where you can only see through your nods. You also have another button that you can see. It's like a flood lamp where you can see like a flashlight, but you can also only see that through your nods. Well, the laser that comes out of this infrared laser that comes out of it, you bore sight it with your weapon. So meaning that it's just as accurate as if you're looking down your sight or through your iron sights. It's the same thing. It's bore sighted. It's going to hit in the same point. So I put that laser on it. I breathe in, breathe out, hold my breath, squeeze the trigger, boom, I hit it, right? And so everyone's around me, look at my squad leader, my team leader, the machine gunner, everyone's looking at me trying to find out what the hell is Luke shooting at. And I see it just over there bouncing on the roof, and I get a little bit better of the position. It's a freaking chicken. So you know how much shit I got from that? A lot.
Exactly.
It's a medium frame, medium size, so it's not a concealed weapon. It is also used by the military police and military police service commands, among others. That's why, as I said, you can also carry them concealed, for example, for the personal protection units of the military police, or even in our use. We are currently also in the process of actively updating our entire range to a comprehensive family of weapons, quite similar to what we currently have with our long guns.
I'm looking
and that's precisely where I'd like to transition now.
about?
Do you have any specific questions about the P30?
No, actually not. Well, of course, we've already seen this incredible gem, and so have many of the individuals standing here, and that's just one particular part of the entire training area, specifically the weapons. And even those are already where most people will say, okay, there is no more to build, or for more purposes.
I need another beer.
Also called G95 in the Bundeswehr, HK416 in caliber 5.56 x45 is the classic NATO caliber, just like the G36 before it. We previously had the G36 for a short time, which we were also very satisfied with. A very significant key reason why we ultimately switched is the excellent compatibility with a silencer, which is readily given here due to its clever design. However, there are also several other important reasons why we made the switch here. Basically, in terms of design, we are talking about the M4 family. That means that the American assault rifle, originally developed by Eugene Stoner, has these classic operating levers, the charging lever to the rear, in contrast to the G3, for example, or G36, so it is somewhat different to use. Why did we choose this system now? Because we want family of weapons. This means that if the commando candidate is trained on the G95 during the shooting course, he will have it at hand and will be able to shoot with it from both sides. Then he can then go into the commando company. For example, if he's a breacher and needs a submachine gun, our MP7, which we also carry, has the same controls. Also the M4, the charging handle here. This means that you can also switch down here and have the same usability. And we want to follow this logic in the area of pistols as well, because ultimately it only has one simple goal: success in war. And we have to be able to switch here as well.
I can see the weapon here. I know a little about it too. That means we have the EOTech on it, which I think is a fantastic visor. In our heavy train, we had the G30K, the short version. You still have the magnet appear in front of it, so you can enlarge it or fold it aside for short distances. Laser light module, flashlight, manual sight, so that you can still participate even if the other one fails. I think for many people who aren't familiar with it, almost all gun drivers look the same. But I think anyone who knows a little bit about it will see, okay, actually everything has been thought of. So I have a sight for a normal short distance, but I can still get a little further with magnification. If that system fails, I can also switch over manually. If I absolutely have to fight in the complete darkness, I can work entirely with advanced night vision equipment and specialized IR and laser light modules. So essentially everything you could possibly need.
Exactly, you've summarized it very well. The main advantage of this weapon compared to the classic M4 system is that it has a gas piston system like the G36, and not a direct impingement gas system. This means there's no hot gas jet directly moving the bolt, but rather a piston rod, which results in the weapon not getting dirty as quickly and experiencing malfunctions much later, or ideally not at all. Here's my magnification, my triple magnification, which I can fold
I've
to
never
the side
actually
for
used
close
that.
range. I can also remove it completely if I don't need it. Or if I use a different optic at night, I can put this one away. You already mentioned the holographic sight. This effectively simulates a visual reticle for me, providing a clear aiming point. Theoretically in front of the weapon, which gives me parallax freedom. This might go too deep into detail now, but ultimately, up to 100 meters, no matter how I look, especially in improvised urban attacks, it has advantages because I don't have a parallax error here. So that means even if I don't look perfectly straight through the optic, my aim and point of impact are still as I zeroed it. And I also have a white light and an IR light available here with which I can identify targets again. And then my suppressor at the very front, which also offers me some significant advantages in its practical use. You specifically mentioned the backup sights, meaning I still have classic reliable iron sights here, which I can effectively use if something else fails. I still have the practical option, just as with the G3 rifle in the past, as you might know from your basic military training, to simply tilt the weapon and then shoot quite classically through a precise peep sight. So from the firing position, I simply tilt the weapon briefly to the side and I'm then able to engage. 30-round magazine, a bit slimmer. Maybe you remember it from your active time. You always wanted to be as slim as possible, getting in and out of vehicles, getting into position, shooting prone. And here I have the advantage that the magazine is much slimmer than, for example, the G36 magazine. That was almost twice as thick. People started to carefully and meticulously sand them down. You don't need to do that here anymore. That's very, very good. Exactly as we wanted. Another nice gimmick is that I have a small compartment built into the grip. A small compartment where I have all my tools, and ultimately all the screws installed on this weapon can be adjusted with this small tool. So I can also field check and zero my weapon, and I have it stored here without any rattling.
How is it actually stored without rattling at all?
There's protective foam material inside, and it's then securely closed under considerable pressure, and there's also a robust seal, so absolutely no water can get in at all.
Well, you really have to say that has done so much. I mean, with you guys, it's always the best of the best where you say, okay, it just doesn't get any better. And this is just for the training where the guys start. Can you say how much the guys shoot here? In terms of ammunition during their training?
Yes,
Ain't gonna say that.
I can at least tell you that in the basic course, every soldier shoots 20,000 rounds in 6 weeks.
Gosh,
Because you only learn to shoot by shooting, and these are certainly high standards, but ultimately it's basic craftsmanship. This is our tool, this is our craft, and it must be mastered. That's only achieved through
20,000
regular
rounds.
training, and this standard must then be maintained through regular training. What I'd like to show you briefly, because we also store it here in the Armory, is our night vision device. There are various night vision technologies to gain enhanced visibility at night, to accurately recognize the enemy, and to effectively assess the situation, to clarify things. I can either amplify existing residual light with an image intensifier tube, or I can use thermal imaging devices. We have both technologies in our unit and can use them. This advanced piece of equipment is a residual light intensifier. It's a compact, lightweight goggle system that seamlessly adapts to the helmet. I can effortlessly fold it down and meticulously adjust it individually to my face.
Looks like the ones I use, but
fits me absolutely
no, it's
perfectly.
not.
With this versatile device, you can confidently parachute jump, skillfully ride motorcycles, expertly drive vehicles, or even effectively fight at night. And that's definitely a really huge advantage. This indeed requires a great deal of consistent practice. I need many hours under night vision goggles to move as confidently as I do during the day and to have proper depth perception. I mean, it's binocular, you know, the Lucy monocular. It doesn't give me that depth effect, that depth perception when moving fast, like parachuting or...
Yeah, I mentioned that. I think on his episode 2 version that I mentioned that your depth perception is gone. So meaning like right now I have no nods on. I can touch this at the same spot every time without looking. But if I have a pair of nods on, that depth perception is going to be a little bit off. And the only way to really retrain your body or your mind into learning the new depth perception under nods is just experience, just getting time with those nods on at night, every single night. By the time you get off deployment, a year later, you've mastered those nods. Like it's like they belong to you at that point.
In vehicles, I need these binoculars just like aircrew to ensure proper depth perception and avoid accidents or mission failure. I also have a small illuminator here so I can turn on the IR light. I have the IR light on my weapons that I can use, and I have the ability to identify and recognize things.
Interesting.
Like chickens.
That's basically the basic toolkit of a commando soldier. In addition, we have a large number of other weapons. However, of course, I don't want to go overboard here. Maybe just a quick overview. How does it go on from here, especially in basic training? What else is used? Here we have a shotgun. However, this is not a weapon. It's very important to point that out. This is not a weapon, but rather a tool. And this is specifically used to open entry points, such as doors, to provide access. There is special ammunition for this, which is capable of, for example, breaching, opening locks, doors, and so on without endangering anyone behind them. But as I said, it's stored in the armory, but it's not a weapon. It's also not used as a weapon, but only as a tool. So for opening the door, exactly in basic training, everyone is given fundamental skills in breaching, as I would call it. So it's the English term for to breach, meaning to create an entry or an opening. Later on, if someone actually becomes a breacher in the commando company, they'll go further and learn the various manual methods. Then shooting techniques, explosive techniques are further taught as well. But every commando soldier, from the commando officer to the commando sergeant, has learned the basic skills here, even in this area, so that they can help out in an emergency or at least have an understanding of it.
I'm a little surprised that he said that they learned that in their basic course. I'm assuming he's going to say his basic KSK course. Or is that something that they actually learn in basic training in the German military? Because if so, that's very impressive.
And is that? That
should be a Remington. Remington, yes. That's an American shotgun. This shotgun here also has a rather short barrel, as I previously mentioned, because we use it as a practical tool and not as an offensive weapon.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, that's another topic. Physical fitness, it's all extra weight you have to carry.
if you say, I'm just being used as a breacher right now, but this is simply the essential tool to effectively open the door and not the actual weapon I then have to draw afterwards.
Here too, it's simply important to handle it quickly and under stress.
Let me just point out that we did carry around those in Afghanistan, and they never switched back, okay? They would clear the house with that shotgun 100%. Who wouldn't do that, right?
And that's something the trainees need to be able to pick up quickly during basic training. That's why in physical training we place so much emphasis on coordination and of course cognitive performance, so that I know how to do it correctly and can remember it. That's something else I wanted to show you. Then here, as I mentioned, the weapons family. And here, if you hold them side by side, you can immediately see how closely related they are. And the length is a whole different story,
very similar to my M14 I carried.
Obvious.
You can see everything is bigger. Basically, it's the same weapon, just in a larger caliber group. So
7.62?
in the NATO 7.62 by 51 caliber group.
Yep.
And in the Bundeswehr, this is called the G27. P for precision, so basically this is for marksmen to engage targets at longer distances and also to be able to identify other targets with a higher magnification on the scope. And of course, the whole weapon has to...
So just to point out, that's very similar to an M14. I'm not that big of a gun guy, so I can't tell you the exact specifics of what the difference is. But that's what we shot, basically. And the funny thing is that I always wanted to get into a firefight with the M14. And the one time that I got into a firefight with the M14, it was nighttime, and it has no nighttime capability.
To be built more robustly because higher gas pressures are at work here from more propellant powder. The barrel has to be more solid simply to ensure precision. I have a bipod here because I tend to shoot from a prone position or with the rifle rested to achieve greater precision and also to better manage recoil so that I can handle it cleanly.
Most people immediately notice, okay, this one is colored from the factory, and this one has been individually painted by the guys themselves, or of course adapted to the scenario because that design wouldn't really be suitable for the Arctic.
Absolutely right. There are, of course, developments and trends in the weapons industry, and the G95 represents a certain stage of evolution, and upon delivery is a newer weapon than the G27P that already existed before, and this weapon comes in black as standard, and that's something we don't want for them. Instead, we always want optimal camouflage. We have our multicam print, we have our various camouflage suits that we can use for the specific terrain, and black is something that really stands out in the field, in nature, and that's why this weapon is now adapted. Nevertheless, there is still the possibility, for example in the Arctic, to also camouflage the weapon in white, or at least partially camouflage it so that I don't have any strong contrast here either, because anything with a strong contrast stands out, it immediately catches the eye.
And is this also used in training? That means during training you've already noticed one person might have good skills in precision, so maybe they'll become a sharpshooter in the squad, where you say, we'll give them the precision weapon.
They also get to know certain specific weapons already in their basic training, but whether they ultimately become skilled snipers afterwards truly depends on their own personal motivation. So if someone genuinely wants to do it and there is a corresponding operational need, then they can certainly do it. But all commando soldiers have the potential. Once they have received their badge and are fully trained, all of them can become snipers. So they all have the potential for it, and that's their intrinsic motivation. Just to finish up. Earlier we talked about the Glock pistol. The Glock ultimately revolutionized the entire pistol market because they were the very first to extensively use polymer in the grip frame. And here we have the Glock 17, which is specifically called the P9 in the Bundeswehr. Certain features, certain equipment details and characteristics that we need for specific applications. That is precisely why there's the convenient option here to use this pistol as well, should it become necessary. In terms of details and features, ambidextrous operation, the ability to adapt or attach a laser light module, it's identical to the P30. The grip angle is a bit different. I have 17 rounds in the magazine as standard compared to 15 rounds.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's also a 9x19 pistol, similar to the P30.
But is it the case that the guys could now choose between absolutely right?
They can, of course, but that's just the basic kit as I described it to you. That's the basic setup. That's our fundamental gear, and everything else comes on top depending on what kind of assignment I have.
I can easily imagine that you have a lot of guys who are totally enthusiastic, thinking, this is exactly what I was made for, this is the training I want. And then, of course, with you, it's everything the heart desires, and that's just the area of impact. Just look at all the equipment and possibilities and weapons available here. Of course, some people might say, I'd like to do this and that and that. But as we say, let's start with the basics first and then move on to the next steps.
Absolutely, yes. The main and most important thing is that I can personally handle it myself and truly know how to effectively use it, and then everything else comes after that. Not that I necessarily have to earn it, but it certainly has its specific and intended use. It's not just there for us to simply enjoy, but because there's a significant mission to fulfill behind it and a genuine necessity to be able to fully master and competently operate it.
Great. Yes, thank you very much for the insights as well.
You're very welcome.
CQB, best
Nice
part.
settled in Lentic. We'll pick up the rental car, grab a bite to eat, do some shopping, and then head to the accommodation and discuss what's
Been to
coming
that
up in the
airport
next
before.
few days, which will be very exciting and is truly an honor. To actually be able to experience this, because it's obviously a very sensitive process.
I bet they're going to go to
Let's see what
Fort
we can
Benning.
control and what we can do. I think there's a lot planned, but of course it's all very, very sensitive. And as I've said before, it's a huge honor to even be able to see this and to be able to show it to you. Hello?
Mr. Mitz, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, Invitation
Mr.
Gando.
Thank you
Mitz.
so very much for truly making it here with us today.
So,
Welcome to the USA. This here, as you can already see, is a very large training facility that
So I'm going to go on a limb and say this is most likely Fort Benning, Georgia. I think I recognize the building. I'm not for sure, but the reason why Fort Benning, Georgia is so important is if you're in the United States Army and you want to become an infantryman, you have to go, all infantrymen have to go through training at Fort Benning, Georgia. It's the home of the infantry, and it's nicknamed Sand Hill. And I was actually a drill sergeant on Sand Hill for a very short amount of time. But yeah, essentially it's a 14, when I went through, it's a 14-week course. I heard they recently increased it to like 21, 22-week course, infantry training. So they go through basic training. There's like a day in between, and then they go through their advanced infantry training. And yeah, it makes sense to be at Fort Benning, Georgia, because it's all things infantry.
We like to use often because here we have everything
We need.
That means I already know what's coming up. Intense space combat, close quarters battle, CQB. So why do you choose the USA?
Yes, of course, we also have many training opportunities in Germany, especially at the CULT location. But we also like to use international training facilities, whether in the USA or in Europe, because it simply gives us many more options to create different scenarios. We truly need this variety to bring our candidates up to the very highest possible level.
I know that unfortunately we can't show everything, but of course I read up on it earlier during the briefing. That means things can be set up here, different scenarios. I've heard there are areas that can be flooded. There are buildings that have somehow collapsed, subway stations. So lots of shooting houses, 360-degree shooting, and that's just a fraction of it. I'm curious to see what we'll be allowed to experience. I'm really looking forward to it. I never would have thought it was this big.
Yeah, what's up if we show it to you again in here? I suggest go inside, take a look. Sounds good. A shopping mall?
Let's get it. The part we're all waiting for.
Big here, right? It's huge.
It's insanely big. Even
The gym is in here.
you can easily get lost here. Stay close to me.
This place is really,
You can tell
CQB
he's
rule number
excited,
one,
right?
Never go alone,
never be the first.
never be the last. These are
Corridors.
a comprehensive family tree of all the various units that regularly and frequently hang out here. Behind us, Sandcats as an overview.
Is this the entire area?
This is the entire area.
Incredible. I mean, if you know Bonland from the Bundeswehr, it's a truly deserted village, which of course is, let's say, very old, not outdated, but just what was originally built over 100 years ago.
Here, though, you already have pretty realistic structures. You'll see there are even collapsed buildings. So you can really represent a wide variety of scenarios here, and that's exactly what we need. Yes. A great variety to bring the men up to a very high level.
Unbelievable.
So I suggest we head into the U-room.
Yeah. I'm always a bit overwhelmed here. The biggest of them all. I think for the guys, this is a real highlight module, a highlight of their training, very demanding, I believe. This is not something you can easily pass on the very first try for everyone, because the significant challenges you set for the guys here are truly high, right?
Yes, so they usually do this module after the first year of training because we know that by then they're at a certain level. And here in this module, we also reap the rewards of the new selection process for the first time, because here psychomotor skills, cognition, and cognitive abilities all come together in the room. Here we cover the basic module of close quarters combat. Later in the training, this is expanded with urban and building combat, fighting from house to house, subway combat, and so on.
Nice.
So it's a small section, but we have to invest a lot of time in it because it requires a great deal of training effort. You'll see it later, or we can take a look at it right away. Many instructors, many rounds for the trainees, many shots fired here, so that in the end, the whole puzzle piece or the entire picture fits together. And I suggest we take a look at what the trainees are doing.
I need to see what the guys are up to. Yeah,
Come
I'm
on,
excited
we're
to
waiting
see
for
a
it.
shooting
Let's
house
get
like
it.
that on the inn, or really the whole facility.
Cool, let's get started.
Very, very impressive. The grounds are truly gigantic, and there's so much you can actually practice here. For example, we're now driving past one of these very specific buildings that was
I don't-
specially
don't
constructed, which
recognize
I
that.
think is clearly meant to simulate collapsed or bombed out houses in war zones to practice finding your way around in them.
That's amazing.
There are just things here that you have. We don't have them. We simply don't have those things where we are. And the training opportunities here, I can understand why the command says we have to come here, because we can simulate so many scenarios here that we can't replicate anywhere else. Again, right here, there's a car sitting on top
All
of
right,
a building
someone's
up
got to
there.
let me know where that's at, because that's not
Incredible.
Fort Benning,
You really
Georgia.
have to see it
I
with
would
your own eyes.
recognize that for sure. I do not remember any of that.
Yes,
So here we actually have a sample room. Maybe as a first explanation, you can see the red lines up there. That's the no-go area for the weapon. That means the candidates or those training here know that they can only go up to that point with their weapon and no further. This ensures that we can fire live rounds in 360 degrees in here. We call a house built like this a catwalk house. Why? Because as instructors, we can walk along the top and look down to see what the trainees are doing. Like a cat, basically, on the walls.
That means the guys are down here shooting in 360 degrees. You walk along the top, or the instructors observe, and basically, I don't know, if they're standing here, someone is basically shooting right underneath me. Yes?
Exactly. Imagine someone is standing there. The instructor stands here, we have the target here, and then shots are fired at it. That means the men have to be able to shoot at a very, very high level.
Can you actually say how many shots they've already fired before they really come to this course? Roughly?
Yes, so shooting course, advanced shooting training. In the preliminary course for this training, 50,000 rounds at least per candidate. Pistol and rifle.
Crap.
Okay, that's already another level. I think there aren't many soldiers who fire many rounds during their entire service.
No, so what we can genuinely offer here in terms of comprehensive shooting training and robust infrastructure, you won't get anywhere else.
International instructors I saw are also listed in the plan. So that means you don't just draw from the valuable experience of your own dedicated guys, but actually from highly skilled ex-Special Forces personnel as well, you could say, including those from America and various other nations.
Also active ones. We've always had the topic of networking with other units. That means many parts of the training are actually conducted in English. And then the candidates have to deal with that. That means the language skills profile also has to be developed accordingly.
Nice.
So take a look at it from above. You just saw it already. The setup can be arranged variably. That means we can keep changing things, constantly creating new situations. Here you have the tracks. That means the walls can be moved. The catwalk can also be moved in parts, maybe one or two more special features. We can darken the whole area so that we can train at night. That means we don't have to wait until it gets dark, but can simply switch to night mode whenever we want, which we do very, very often. And in addition, you can see it down there, for example, at the door. Explosives can be used there.
Okay.
And explosives are used here.
That means you can basically practice almost everything here that you might face in a real-life situation. Doors need to be blown open. We have darkness. We have obstacles in rooms. There are large rooms, small rooms, dead ends, all sorts of things.
Exactly. So we can create a very, very broad portfolio here. And you don't get that everywhere. And it's absolutely necessary to get the men to the level where we want them to be. Shall we take a look at a stairwell? Yes, gladly. Let's make our way downstairs. Here we have a stairwell. You can see you can shoot 360 degrees in here as well.
Nice.
Dead spaces are represented, and then it just continues upstairs. In the same layout, just as you saw it before. Narrow, winding, with furniture inside. Rooms can be rearranged.
Now let's first just watch the guys as they really barrel through here. I almost want to say.
Yes, that's what we've been waiting for.
Begin exercise.
Oh, they block it all out? Seriously?
What I was allowed to see here were probably the deepest insights an outsider has ever gotten into the operations of the KSK. I would love to show them to you, but even the smallest details can increase the risk for the commando soldiers during missions and could even lead to a mission's failure.
Dang.
From a truly personal tour through the Advanced Shooting Training Center in Calvé, plus
All right, so I waited this entire video for them to show CQB, and they did not show it. But since you made it all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to share another combat story that I probably only shared to a few people ever. But we were in the same firefight, the close near ambush, pure chaos, combat's chaos. And I hear my team leader screaming for me to get over there, right? They're about to go. They just seen an enemy combatant run into this house. And so my adrenaline is through the roof, right? I'm like pumped up. You can tell that I'm excited talking about it. I was 10 times this, right? So we go in there. We're stacked up on the outside of the house. I'm like, all right. We're finally going to do it. We did all this CQB training. we're finally going to clear a house with an enemy combatant inside. And we stack up on the outside, and basically my team leader's like, we are definitely not going inside that house. There's a dude in there with a gun. Like, are you crazy? And he looks over there to a PFC Forester, E3 Forester, private first class Forester. And he's like, prep a grenade, right? So if you know anything about the military at that time, especially the US military, you have the pin and you have the spoon. You release the spoon. Once the pin's pulled, the spoon comes off, the grenade goes off. The US military, at least within the 82nd, we would have a piece of tape around the grenade just to make sure that spoon does not come off. So he looks over at him and tells him to prep a grenade, meaning he wants him to take the tape off. So then all he's got to do is pull the pin and throw the grenade in, right? So, I don't know, maybe like 10 seconds passes. He looks over at him and he's like, all right, do you got the grenade prepped? And Forster has the pin pulled with the spoon. He's just holding the spoon, which it won't go off, but still, who wants to hold a live grenade, right? And he's like, well, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, throw it in, right? So he throws the grenade in, goes off, and we go inside. And that story is reserved for another day, but since you made it all the way to the end of the video, I wanted to show a little piece of it about how CQB really goes in a real combat zone. All right, so if you stuck around to the end of the video, hit that like button, subscribe, let me know what you want to see next.